This is a story of one of 3 guitars that I picked up on the last day of a 4-day estate sale in Palm Harbor. The deceased was a uke builder, a guitar repairer and fixer-upper, a music teacher, a collector of many different instruments to repair. This was the last day, and the dregs were all that was left. This particular guitar had something rattling around inside. As I inspected it to hold and held it upside down, out fell a letter from the lady who had owned the guitar and had seen a story in the paper and an article about the gentleman who had an interest in old guitars. So in September of 1991, she wrote him a letter to see if he'd be willing to have this guitar. She'd inherited from the last man of a group of friends that they used to play music together in their youth. All had passed now, and all were playing with the angels. Well, he picked up her guitar, but he never had, his time ran out before he ever got around to fixing it, so I had to have it, and I would finish the job for him. As you can see from these pictures, this guitar was quite a mess when I got it. Very bad finish on it. It has all kinds of lumps and bumps, dirt, grime, and so there was a lot of work that had to be done. Here are some pictures of before and after a little bit of cleaning. But it turned out to be quite a project. I had had the guitar sitting on my desk in my own room for about 2 or 3 years in the garage before I finally started the repairs. The fretboard was disintegrating, and the neck needed to be removed, so I could remove that and put in a new fretboard. The 3 dots you just saw in the previous photo were where screws were holding the neck on. There, you can see it in this photo as well. Once I got the fretboard off, I needed to do a lot of cleaning to get the old glue off, and paint remover did a great job of doing that. There's the old fretboard, and I used an iron to heat up the edges to remove the binding material. I used a paint scraper to help pull it off. Here is an example of one of the braces that is covered with a gluish grime that would seem to be dumped into the guitar. I used paint remover to go around the label and clean the guitar all up to remove the grime, and here's the braces without the grime. Here's a view of the top of the guitar and one of the braces that has all that grime on it as well. They must have just poured it through the sound hole. Maybe the braces were coming loose and they thought, well, we'll dump some glue in here to tighten them up. But anyway, I got them all cleaned up, started putting them together. Then I did some work on the top of the guitar as well. Here's the Galiano label, 1912, someone handwritten on it. So I'm assuming that's probably when it was made. There I've got the braces all back on the back side, and we began working on the top. There were some splits next to the neck. You can see them here, and I had to glue those together, and I put little pieces of wood to hold them so that they would not come loose again. And then I started putting the back together, put the back on after I had all the pieces cleaned up and ready to go. When I pulled the back off, all the binding had to come off. Here's some of the binding that's loose there. It looks a little cleaned up. But I had to scrape most of the glue and old stuff off of it and clean them all up. You can see a lot of the glue here on this. Once it's all cleaned up, it looked nice and white. And I had to place it back in position and fasten it after gluing it with duct tape. It was a great duct tape. Held everything in place while I glued it all back. And here is the guitar with the binding all put back onto it. Needs cleaning. I need to polish it up and clean it. Got a lot of work to do before that. Clean some of this stuff off so I can glue the fretboard and neck back into place. A lot more work yet to do. Didn't take any pictures today, so I thought I'll just do a little bit of video. This was the old piece of ebony that was on the heel of this guitar. So I made a new piece of ebony. I got it in there, and I also am putting in a layer of a lighter color wood in between, and I'll shape that a little bit later. This is one of the things I've been working on today. I'm doing the same thing with my new fretboard. I put in a layer of white, which I'll shape along the side once I get the fretboard cut and placed on top here. The fretboard's right here, as a matter of fact. This is the fretboard that I'm going to be putting on. It's kind of a neat piece of ebony. I need to still trim it down and shape it. I'll need to put the slots in on the for the frets. So a lot of work to do. Here's where I'm beginning to glue the neck back into the body. I had to use there were 2 screws originally holding it. I used one to pull it in and firm and make it real nice and solid until the glue dried. You can see the screw there that I used to pull in. And it'll be cleaned up later. I probably will leave those holes there, part of the guitar's history. Here's the white board that I put in between the fretboard, and then I had to add some to the body of the guitar because the fretboard goes up over the guitar. This fretboard was one that I picked up at that estate sale. They had a whole bunch of them, and I bought 2 or 3 of them. Here we are gluing it all together now, holding it in place. At this point, I've done most of the major work on it, and it's time to add. Here's a pair of tuners that I picked up off of eBay. Unfortunately, I only had one that matched like that. Here's the fretboard. It looks really good. I haven't sliced it yet, but I'm going to put cuts in it. Everything's cleaned up. It came out pretty nice. I'm leaving all it as it is, kind of rough, because it does have 100 years of use and stuff, and it had a pretty hard life. So all that's part of the history of the guitar. Here's the tuners on the other side, which are similar but not the same. Here's the fret knife I used for cutting the fret slots in. And there you can see the slots. And then I use that hammer to hammer the frets in as I cut them to piece, the correct size, and use a file to help get the sharp edges off the edge of it. I didn't do a real good job on that. I ended up nicking up the fretboard a little bit. Finally finished working on this guitar. It's an A Galiano from 1912. Looks kind of like a Martin headstock on it. That's not, it's from that same era. These are Italians that lived in New York City, a whole group of them. This is the guitar. I had to take the whole back off, re-put all the braces that were in it, made a new neck, or a new fretboard for it, and put the pearls from the old one, and I had to make one here. I had an extra piece of pearl, so I had to make a little round dot for it. And now, play it a little bit so you can see what it sounds like. Maybe I better quit while I'm ahead. But that's the guitar. I'm really pleased with the sound of it. It has a few tweaks that I need to do. I need to do a little bit of resurfing. There's some buzzing that happens in some places, but real pleased with the way it turned out. Not bad for probably about 110 years old. Peace.